Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this. This is a number of sounds ordered sequentially to convey meaning. I've always been a bit confused by the word this. Is it a piece of string from the sentence to the world, or is this an inappropriate forum for such a discussion? Whatever this is, it's gone on too long. And now, back by... back... Anyway, please give it up for Raph Shirley. This is an anagram of shit. Right, what's going on? That's what you're asking yourselves. This is an audio recording of my last Edinburgh show. It's a few things won't make sense. There's quite a lot of visual gags, so be prepared for things not making sense in that regard. I'll try to flag them up. But also, one must imagine that we're in a thriving pub atmosphere. There's 5, 6, maybe 10 people really happy to be there in Rush Bar. It's where this little thing is set. It's not a man in his bedroom. Alright, get that out of your mind. Have we got off on the wrong foot? I got the idea for the intro from Christina Aguilera. It's supposed to be like a sort of a beautiful butterfly / Christ-like imagery. There is an example of reference you won't get without actually seeing what happens. I've ruined it, haven't I? I should have gone hello. I should have said hello. Hello, whatever. I should have skipped the intro, gone straight to the middle. How to start? Is it ruined? We'll soldier on. It's great to be here. Welcome to the show. You're from London. Oh, fancy. That's how I should go. Don't worry, guys. I've got everything under control. Seriously, I've done this 3 or 4 times before. Everything is absolutely fine. Let me see. So I count the audience. How many of them are there? Yes, should be good for the crowd surf. See, that joke there's a hinges on being very much aware of the fact it's a small audience and a crowd surf would be ridiculous. As a piece of audio, it's ridiculous, really, isn't it? If they're under 5, it can get a little hairy for the crowd surf. Just to remind you of that. If there's nobody, like yesterday, it's bizarre. See, it is bizarre now. I'm doing this as an audio recording. When I did this on stage, that saying it's bizarre was sort of joking, but it is bizarre now. A desperate man writhing on the floor to an audience of nothing. Guys, you are in for a treat. Seriously, this show is what I would describe as very exciting. E.g., I've got a standard coin with me here, standard 2p coin. Toss that. Right, that's heads. That could have been tails. Literally anything could have happened. And that is just one example of the sort of crazy pranks I'm going to be pulling with this show. The emotions this show thrusts upon the viewer. This show is... how should I say? Okay, let me talk you through my fringe registration to give you an idea of the show, right? On a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is comfortable and 5 is challenging, where do you put your show? 4. Yeah, not 5. I mean, that would be silly. But on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is serious and 5 is laugh riot, again 4. Guys, I'm ambitious, but I'm not insane. Certificate PG, 2 uses of the word shit, 2 uses of the word fuck. Roughly in line with the Economist Style Guide's recommendations. Now, I don't use the C word because it's a massive phony, isn't it? It marches around pretending it's the worst word, the baddest boy on campus, in spite of the plain fact of the racist ones. Everybody knows that misogyny is more acceptable to the mainstream than racism. Just ask well-known misogynist Chris Rock. I once watched him dance a merry little ballet around racism before casually ploughing on in misogynist tomes. Before casually ploughing on through a field of misogyny. But it's okay because he's black. And if you're the victim of one prejudice, then you're allowed to have one. That's why I became a homosexual. It's like, I'm really not enjoying this, but I soldier on because when I get my prejudice, it'll be worth it. Oi, 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 oi. By the way, I should warn you that due to a lack of punchlines, there will be a 10-minute fart noise during the midway lull. Now, before I begin, let me give you a quick overview of the show. It goes introduction, methods, results, discussion, conclusions. This is just the front matter, mate. It's not even the investigations proper. Just to warn you, I will be reviewing you. So no need to feel under pressure, but I will be using the star system. How the tables have turned. Yeah, I've got you on the run, and I ain't never looking back. You've been listening to Raph Shirley's Philosophical Investigations. That was the end of the front matter. Tune in next week for Section 1, Introduction. Section 1, Introduction. Hello, dear friends and or enemies, to whom it may concern. My name's Raph. Don't be confused by that. It's just like any other sound. Just think of it as being like John, with more pretension, maybe. I'm an award-winning person. I've got these medals in my hand here. I don't even know what they're for. That's just the kind of guy I am. I'm like, what? Silver? Gold medals? Dunno, mate, whatever. They've got a tiger on them. Regional Karate Championships 1994. Conservationist of the Year 1996, Southeast Edition. Yes, I do have both those things. One does not brag. It's like, I've always known I've been a bit different. Yeah, like when I was 15, I thought, what is it about me? I don't really fit in. And of course, it turned out what it was is that I'm a genius. And suddenly, everything slotted into place. Like my first word was Dada, in reference to the artistic movement one presumes. Now, I'm an out-of-work philosopher. It's not the 9 to 5, more the 11:30 to say 2 a.m. I'm also a man of the people. It's like when I was at Eton, I used to smash my fists on the table and say, "Damn this privilege!" Right? And then I'd go up to the master and I'd take a roast chicken out of his mouth and I'd throw it out the window. And it did land in the mouths of tramps. But what is amazing about me is that despite all that privilege, all that upbringing, I've still managed to be an abject failure. I mean, it's not as bad as like, Prince Harry or something, but it's quite extreme. Now, this show is called Philosophical Investigations. Again, don't be confused by that. Just think of it as being like any other title, like Bambi. Again, with more pretension. I'm a pretentious man. I eat with this fork. Visual gag alert. I bring out a fancy looking fork. Look at that. That should be used to eat a silver oyster, not tomato puree. And let's face it, my social stature suggests what I should be using is this. Visual gag alert. At this point I drop the fork, revealing my hand as an eating device. Right, now, footnote 1. When I use eating with hands as a symbol of a lack of manners and class, I mean no disrespect to Bengalis. Right? Au contraire, I celebrate diversity. Yes, every morning I get up and I celebrate diversity, be it with song, be it with dance, be it with onanism. It's like if I was to go on Question Time, first thing I'd say would be, and that is why in this country we need to celebrate diversity. Clap. Yes, that's what they said about Iraq. Shit. Taxes are our money. Clap. Yes, that's what they said about Iraq. Triple clap. Winner of Question Time. Yes. Footnote 2, there will be footnotes throughout the act. They're there just to add a little detail or embellishment where a whole section is not really warranted. For instance, it would be nigh on preposterous to talk at length about the existence of footnotes in a show, but as a footnote, it's a useful piece of extra information. Diary entry 1, January 1st, 2011, started the philosophical investigations, or the investigations for short. January 2nd, popped down the co-op for toilet paper and duck. Footnote 3, as well as footnotes, there will also be diary entries, just to give an idea of the process of creating this great work. A little background, also a little help for the inevitable historians. Because when the kids are reading this in 1,000 years' time, they're going to be like, Sir, I find Shirley too difficult. He's too complex an author. And Sir will be like, look to the diary entries. They can give clues. One final thing, the show also serves as a companion piece to Terminator 2, which I don't know if you know it, but it's the best film. It's a complex piece, guys, and I need to make an important point here. When you are dealing with a complex piece such as this, you will see many complicated ideas. You will be confused. You will see things where you think, yeah, what's going on? Now, in that situation, one assumes the fault lies with the viewer, or in this case, the listener. And just smile, for heaven's sake. Yeah, and it's like the guide for the Edinburgh Festival. This is very much a visual bit here. The Edinburgh Festival guide, 2011. They always have quite strange visual themes, and this year, the year 2011, they had sort of people in lycra suits, full body lycra suits, wearing all the same colour and like maybe a helmet or a welding mask or something. This little bit is about that, I suppose. Where is it? You might look at that. You might look at this. You might say, why is there a man in a blue lycra suit and an American football helmet? Why? One does not ask these questions. Yes. Now, you could say maybe I should cut this stuff for the audio. But maybe can I say this isn't entirely a piece of comedy? Would that be get me out of jail a bit here? Could I say it's a historical document of my time in Edinburgh, perhaps? It's less comedy, more historical document. That's my apology, I suppose. Anyway, it's the morning of the show, isn't it? The spring of the piece, the Cambrian period of the work. This part corresponds to the bit in Terminator 2 where he walks into the bar naked, and the woman, she pulls a face to show shock at the size of his penis. The Terminator has a big penis. He's a virile robot. Now, personally, I just don't think that's appropriate. One of the few flaws in the Terminator franchise. Anyway, philosophical investigations. People say, what's it about, Raph? Raph, why have you called your show that? Raph, you don't know anything about philosophy. Isn't the very idea of you doing a show about it fundamentally flawed? And I say that may well be. That may well be. But my whole philosophy is a little bit different to whoever. I'm not talking about Wittgenstein and whatever it was he did. I'm talking about the man who turns up at Renu's Bangladeshi takeaway 5 minutes before the order's due with an insulated food carrier. Yes, everyday philosophy. I'm talking about the man who tells the Sainsbury's robot that a lime is a baking potato. The man that in a moment of genius told that same robot that a bottle of champagne was an avocado. That one set the beeper off. But I was like, that's what I thought an avocado was. Footnote 4. If you're trying to win an argument, don't point at your own head. It just makes you look mentally ill. Diary entry 2, March 26th, 2011. Oh, I thought it was Mothering Son Day. Section 1.1, caveat. Karl Marx said that in a capitalist society, money is a universal measure of value. Welcome to the Free Fringe. Again, that one only really makes sense if you know that you're in a show and you haven't paid for it, although of course you're getting this audio for free on the internet, so it still basically makes sense. A little comparison for your consideration. Jerry Seinfeld at the O2, capacity 23,000, £100 a ticket, approximately £2 million worth of comedy. Raph Shirley, Rush Bar, or subsequently on the internet, approximately £0 worth of comedy. 2 million divided by 0, that's approximately infinitely better. We're not at the O2, guys, so temper your expectations. And that's just some general advice for life. Temper your expectations or you will be in for a rude shock. You could say, when you think about it, that I paid for trains, costume, props, a little audio capture device now. You could say I'm paying you guys, you owe me. So I've got a number of requests, things I want done in return. First of all, please don't say HIV virus, because you're effectively saying human immunodeficiency virus, which is stupid and offensive. So don't. PIN number. The number's already covered, guys. Just leave it alone. Second request, and this one is train related. As long as there is a double seat free in your carriage, you can do whatever you want, right? You can sit on the outside seat. You can put a bag down to stop someone sitting there. That's all fine. But as soon as there are no free doubles in your carriage, then you must move to the window and not put your bag down. And if you see someone who's done that, you have to say, I despise you and everything you stand for. And you have to climb over them and sit down on their bag and spend the rest of the journey being obnoxious. And while you're climbing over them, and you might think this extreme, but you'd be mistaken, while you're climbing over them, you have to defecate into their eye. Because otherwise, good citizens like me, we always get lumbered with someone sitting next to them. And I hate sitting next to the proletariat. They stink, and they're stupid, and they're uncouth. It's like you guys, I don't want to sit next to you. You look like you're born in a rat warren. To summarise, a humble venue, yes. A humble show, oh no. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, do I challenge your conventions? Oh, I'm sorry, have I changed the way you see the world? Oh, I'm sorry, do I blow your mind? When I do stand up sometimes I like to swear, as if to say, I do not heed your petty rules, world. In fact, it is my desire to offend. Ooh, baby, sometimes I like to make light of topical tragedy. I am known to make flippant remarks the instant they are reported in the news, and then you can say, too soon, as if there was some skill in this banal enterprise. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready, because we're about to dive headfirst directly into a more academic style of discourse. Now, this show is composed of a form of intense inquiry that you might not be used to, and the first question we are going to consider is, have I misjudged the costume? Right, this, to me, is the archetypal visual gag here. What you, the audio listener, are unaware of is that for the entirety of the show so far, I've been wearing a full get-up of a follower of Islam. It's a kind of long white gown and a white kind of knitted hat for the head that you will often see Muslims wear around the street. So again, that joke doesn't really work here. It's become a kind of a strange moment more than anything. For me, this has been instructive as a kind of a lesson in the differences between audio and live performance. For you, it's been maybe a waste of time, but again, I remind you of the fact you're not paying for this, and therefore say, get lost, yeah? Seriously, or get over yourself, mate. Anyway, moving on. Pro. Have I misjudged the costume? Pro. It's rather cheeky, rather irreverent. I'm going to persevere with this material, by the way. I mean, just because it doesn't make sense, because it's visual, I'm going to persevere with it. Right, I've said pro, it's rather cheeky, rather irreverent. Con. Allah is severe in his punishments. Pro, I agree with Islam on a number of issues. For instance, I do find women quite annoying. It's like, nag. Can I go to school? Can I have the votes? Can I not be murdered as punishment for breaking one of your hypocritically enforced laws? Con, Islamic blasphemy is a bit 2005, isn't it? Yeah, let's be honest, a little bit on the wane, but I persevere. Yes? Of course, ultimately, what I'm trying to do is to try and welcome Muslims into the discussion by treating them in exactly the same way we treat Christians. Pause. With suspicion and contempt. On the other hand, I treat atheists with kid gloves, in line with the views of my projected demographic. That's you guys. Now, if you're still making your mind up, I always recommend atheism, just because what's great about it is that it's perceived to be the most rigorous position, whilst also requiring the least reading and effort. No, but what happened is I was like, I'm going to do something pretty out there at this festival. Yes, I am going to be critical of organised religion in the strongest possible terms. And then this guy, he told me there was this comedian in Edinburgh a couple of years ago who's already done it. And I was like, what? Why didn't somebody tell me this? I turned to my mum. I was like, Mum, why didn't you tell me that? She was like, I don't know about these things. I thought it was called the Mighty Bosch. But what costume should you wear, guys? You're quick to criticise, aren't you? But I'd like to see you come up with a better idea. Should you wear a suit, sort of blank canvas? Trouble is, I wear a suit, I end up offending city workers. It's a minefield. Should you wear no costume, just wear your ordinary clothes? Or formal wear? At this point, I've taken off the Muslim wear and I've changed into a new costume, which is jogging bottoms and a tweed jacket. It really does show you the impossibility of transferring a joke between the senses. In a way, could I pretend this is all intentional? Would you believe that? Yay or nay? Anyway, of course, the major problem with jogging bottoms, which remember I'm wearing at the time, is they are extremely revealing. Yes, you see a lot of things you don't wish to see. That's why I've invented a little contraption here, patent applied for, another visual gag here. What it is, it's a coat hanger that I've sort of bent into a shape, which when I tuck it into my pants, it creates a sort of a protrusion into my jogging bottoms, which means that the outline of my flesh is not revealed via the outline of the cloth of my jogging bottoms. Rather, you just see this kind of rectangular outline of the coat hanger. And what this means is that whatever you think you're seeing, rest assured it is merely coiled wire neath cloth. Section 1.2, aims. And one of the aims of this show, Nay My Life, is to make Shakespeare accessible to kids with a Z. And I spell kids with a Z because I will only teach irreverent children. And I do this through my lecture series. I used to do it via being a professional teacher. Anyway, I lost my job as a teacher because I don't know if you've ever met a child, but they are bloody ignorant, and I'm not prepared to teach people like that. Sorry, I have morals. Now, Shakespeare, it can be difficult, can he? He uses funny words. It is boring. Some of it is just rubbish. To be or not to be, that is a question. Silly Billy. A lot of it is pretentious. I mean, why stop at universal emotional truths? Why not just write about the whole goddamn universe? You know what I mean? So what I like to do is I like to go through an example and I like to modernise it. I like to improve it so that kids can get to grips with it. All the world's a stage. No, it's not. It's not, is it? The way I like to teach it is to say the world contains some theatrical stages and all the men and women merely players. No. There is no such thing as a mere actor. Updated version, people can be thought of as having traits in common with professional actors. They have their exits and their entrances. I'll give him that. And you know what? The rest can be summarised by just tutting and then saying, life! Exclamation mark. To summarise, I am a great lover of knowledge, art and truth. And the aim of this show is to understand all. Section 1.3, stance. Where am I coming from? Who's the target audience? The truth is, I'll take anyone I can get. I lean whichever way the wind blows. I'm reasonable, guys. I'll happily reiterate the ugliness of Susan Boyle. I will happily comment on human sexual dimorphism and gender roles. Because I've got a penis and she doesn't, and she has breasts and I don't, and it's endless fun. And it's just a part of being human. Diary entry 3, May 3rd, 2011. Had a bath. Did a poo in the bath. And I thought, am I going mad? That's really odd thing to do, isn't it? And then the poo floated out of the water and morphed into the ghost of my dead brother. And I thought, yes, I am going mad, yeah. It's all right, my brother's not really dead. The only real tragedy is that I would imagine a brother's downfall in a misguided attempt to amuse strangers. But I should tell you about my brother. The best way to tell you about my brother, is to read a review I wrote of him in my family magazine, the Shirley Gazette, of which I am the editor, publisher, and sole contributor to. Another little visual gag here. I reveal the cover of the Shirley Gazette with the headline "Mother Snogs Stranger After Pub Quiz Nights." Supposed to be a little kind of character revelation there. Edited in Microsoft Works newspaper template. Thrilling use of fonts there. I once wrote an article where every letter was in a different font and they all properly reflected mood. Right. My brother review. Despite some flashes of interest, Raph Shirley is underwhelmed. 3 stars. My brother entered the scene in late 1989 and has been wowing family occasion goers ever since. Unfortunately, his performance has become rather stolid of late. Now he's a sort of lumpen, drudging knockoff of better brothers such as David Attenborough and Ethan Coen. A modern updating of The Prodigal Son it might be, but please, I haven't seen melodrama this hammy since Breakfast with the Afflecks. Ben is clearly capable of amusing us. We still talk about him falling over in the paddling pool in 97, but he's going to have to figure out what it was that we once liked, nay really liked. Sorry parents, but this sequel was a flop. Perhaps next time you should place less faith in the stress resistance of polyurethane. Yes, I think you understand a little bit more about my brother now. He's my parents' favourite because he has a job and he's moved out and he's not strange. Diary entry 4. Had another bath. I have a bath every couple of weeks, even if I don't need one. Footnote 5. I stole that joke from Freud, but it's out of copyright now, so... I was naked in the bath, and my dad offered to make me a cup of tea through the door. I said, I don't want to talk to you when I'm naked. And he said, it's all right, I can't see you. That's not the point. Being naked is an emotional and philosophical state. It's not just whether you can be seen or not. Clothes are not just there just to cover... Look, just piss off, Dad. You've been listening to Raph Shirley's Philosophical Investigations. Tune in next week for Section 2, Methods. Section 2, Methods. Method number 1, drama. We will be using dramatic devices. Acting, sadness, happiness, accents, Scottish. Yeah, sometimes all together. I went to Edinburgh Zoo and the critters made me happy for a while. But then I remembered the unsympathetic universe. I love drama because drama is infinite. And I do it all. I do fourth wall stuff. I do floor work. I call this room a space, for God's sake. Now I do little scenes. Look, right now, guys, this bit is a real... This next bit is purely visual gag. And I'm going to do a little experiment here. I'm going to try just reading out my own stage directions and seeing if I can convey any of the humour whatsoever. I check my watch, then start to read the New York Times and snigger. You think I'm a pompous prick. I look side to side and reveal that I'm reading the Simpsons comic. I giggle. I look side to side and reveal that I'm giggling at a banana. I look to the audience, showing the other side of the banana. It says bum on it! Little plug, I'm also doing a one-man Lear. Same space, Rush Bar, every night at 2 a.m. throughout the festival. It's going to be unconventional, and you'll get no more out of me than that. Footnote 6, that's a genuine Patrick Stewart quote. The hedge sparrow fed the cuckoo so long that it had its head bit off by it young. Rush Bar is a great space for experimenting, especially since they got rid of the sick/Red Bull stench of 2005-8 and replaced it with the bleach aroma of 2008 present. Views expressed are not those of Rush Bar. Method number 2, impressions. Oh, impressions. This is my impression of Robert De Niro. That's purely visual. Forget about that. Let's move on. This is my impression of Stephen Fry. Woo, yeah, I love knowledge. I never want to do QI again. I never want to see Alan Davies' sloppy face sagging further to the ground with every sardonic remark till it is but puddle upon floor. I deserve a 3-part documentary to be made about my bad moods. Oh, have you seen the blood oozing from the cracks in the pavement? Have you shared my nightmare? On the other hand, I'm a wealthy polymath. I donate 10% of my income to Stephen Fry just to try and buy him It's a Wonderful Life. Buy him some flowers sometimes, you know. And if you're ever feeling bad about your own life, you're ever made redundant or diagnosed with a terminal illness, you're ever grieving, just think, at least I'm not having one of Stephen Fry's bad moods. They are shocking. This bit's all. This I'm not going to even bother read out this bit. It's all entirely visual. This bit, incidentally, this visual bit offended a few people. One day in particular, a woman was extremely offended, and anyway, I won't tell you what it was. Let's just move on. Where are we? It's difficult to know how to get back into material now. Although the impressions I did there, they were all visual impressions, and they were all of Jesus and Muhammad. And then, as I said, that's when someone was offended. Looking back on it, it's all quite hack material, really. It's all quite straightforward material on religion, the kind of material that any ten-a-penny pub comic would do. Anyway, I'm going to leave all this pausing in because I have a problem with going too fast in my shows. I don't know if I've been doing that in this audio recording, but to me, this is maybe just a little breather, just a chance for me to... I'm looking through the script at the moment, finding what's going on. I actually quite like Jesus and Muhammad. I think they're probably rather embarrassed by their fans. If Jesus met the Pope, it will be like Che Guevara seeing his face on the chest of an Italian clubber doing the YMCA, a kind of, what have I created? And I've always felt a bit sorry for Muhammad. I always think he really wanted to be the second coming, but unfortunately he was too ugly. You're not fooling anyone, Muhammad. There's only one reason why people don't allow pictures of themselves. Actually, if you want to see this material and see the visual gags, you can see it on I did a Chortle Student Comedy Award thing a while ago. I look back on it now and I find it all quite shit. But it's a reflection of my thinking when I was sort of 24 or something. But basically when, like all 24-year-olds, I was a moron. And actually, in hindsight now, I think, I do think perhaps that is the reason Muhammad didn't allow images of himself, because he was ugly. But actually, I think being ugly goes in his favour. Socrates was ugly, and Jesus supposedly was very good looking. I think that goes against Jesus. I think it's why you can't really take anything Jesus says seriously, because if we're supposed to believe, the Christian faith tells us that Jesus is a representation of the ideal man, of what we should all aspire to, then I think the fact that part of that is being beautiful in body is actually quite an ugly proposition. I think maybe Socrates, for instance, said that lots of his he was a philosopher because he was ugly, and actually being ugly is a good thing. Anyway, this is just not comedy at all now. It's just me being pretentious. But as I say, go look at my Chortle Student Comedy Awards. You can see the material in full there. But there is no best religion, is there? There is no need to rank religious figures. If you had to, then just speaking purely objectively, then you'd have to say Jesus is better. Better looking. Worst thing Jesus did, curse a fig tree. Muhammad ordered a murder. Don't get me wrong, Jesus is no Socrates. Jesus is to Buddha what the Beatles are to early black music. The music of B.O. But that makes Muhammad Oasis. Do people know that Muhammad ordered a murder? It's this Jewish guy who was trying to kill Muhammad, so sort of fair enough. On the other hand, what would Jesus have done? But the other thing the Jewish guy did was to write erotic poetry about Muslim women, and that really pissed Muhammad off, I think. Now, no one knows exactly what the poem said, but I have managed to piece together the exact texts using a combination of historical accuracy, the latest scientific methods, and largely fancy. In her, shapelessness reached an apogee, a sphere. Black sheet slipping off her revealed form. Sexy. Ultimately, The Wizard of Oz was disappointing. Guys, can we speak freely for a second? When you want to be a world-class impressionist, you have to take one of two roads. You either have to be a fox, you do a lot of impressions all right, or you're a hedgehog. You do one impression perfect. Well, decide which you think I am after my next impression, the voice of Disney Blu-ray adverts. The tale as old as time is new again. That's Beauty and the Beast. And then it goes on, so why don't you? And then it cuts to a clock singing Be Our Guest. Would a clap be too much to ask? I think. Would a standing ovation be too much? Mentioning the wheel? Diary entry 5, alphabetised my dinner of alphabeti spaghetti, which leads me neatly into section 2.2, writing. In the beginning, I created a Word doc, and yes, that is an appropriate analogy. This has all been written. A bit strange to think of all this written down somewhere, isn't it? A bit spooky. Lends these words a certain weight, which is inappropriate. Oh, that my words were written. Oh, that they were printed in a book. Job 19:23. Footnote 7. The trouble with writing things down, the written words, is that it's liable to be found by a snooping mum and read without the proper context and used against you as the grounds for throwing me out of the basement. Real reason, Dad wants a gym. I said, you know what, Dad? You can shove that gym where the sun don't shine. He said, yeah, the basement. And Mum giggled. I said, fuck you. Waste? With your provincial moors and your Ford Focus. And can I have a lift to the pub, please? He said, firstly, it's pronounced mores. And secondly, no. I said, fine, call me a taxi. He said, no. I said, all right, order it online. He said, no. I said, what are you talking about, old man? Basement gym for his high blood pressure? Oh, how convenient. Just when I start my band and we need someone to practice, you get high blood pressure. And it's like, I am moving into the big yellow self-store, but it's not ideal. I have to wash in a nice cream tub. And sometimes the Coke bottle toilet falls over. Anyway, there it is. The script I'm pointing at now. Is this wrong? This is the show, written on a Toshiba Satellite Pro. And I will only ever write with a Toshiba or a quill. And unlike most comedians, I do use notes. There are good public speakers on both sides of the argument here. You got David Cameron's first party conference without notes. Pretty good, with notes, you've got the Gettysburg Address. Bill Clinton addresses the Labour Party 2008. Without notes, very good speech. The Sermon on the Mount. Yes, philosophical investigations. Lincoln, Christ, Shirley. Am I great? Not yet. Raph, what mouse did you use for that? Just the Cyborg Rat 9 gaming mouse. Now that is a visual gag. You have to Google Cyborg Rat 9 gaming mouse, please. What does the rat stand for? Nobody knows, but it is almost certainly meant to allude to this mouse's exaggerated scale and aggression. $84.99. What a mouse. And I use that mouse for World of Warcraft as well. I don't know if you know what that is. It's just a massively multiplayer online role-playing game I'm into. You've been listening to Raph Shirley's Philosophical Investigations. Tune in next week for Section 3, Results. Section 3, Results, aka what's the point, the heart of the matter, the core, the summer, the Jurassic, the afternoon, the bit in T2 where they escape from the mental institute, the young adult part, 35 to 45, we're thinking about having kids and settling down, the insipid parts, if you will. And let's just consider how these results have come about. They are the results of my brain. Years' thought and hard work have come together to cultivate these ideas, and they are some pretty right on ideas. As an example, let me tell you an idea that isn't even included because it wasn't good enough, just to give you an idea of the sort of quality we are dealing with here. I designed the perfect restaurant. Yeah, it had rotating spoons set to a laser light show, just not good enough. Yeah, pretty nice restaurant, I think you'll agree. And yet this year, again, overlooked by the Nobel Committee. Peace, obviously. And it's like, I phoned them up. I said, look, if there's any way I can help out with the problems in the Middle East, just give me a call. And it's like they don't get back to you and they wonder why they're still having problems. Do you know what I mean? And anyway, I did go out there. Of my own accord, under my own steam, and I hosted a lovely street party with members of the Muslim community and members of the Jewish community, and by the end they were all holding hands like this, and they were singing, "We will be friends forevermore," and then just because I'd been planning a prank, because I always think that a prank brings people together. Right, and just as we will be friends, just at the climax of the song, I jumped out and said, "I put pork in the curry," and it wasn't quite, it was I was like, you know what, you're ignorant, right? But what I thought was actually profound, and this is something that I mentioned in the courts, was that when you look at the Muslim Sikh, the Jewish Sikh, it all looks the same. You know, it is a potent symbol. No, but seriously, what have they got against pigs? You know, I mean, Babe was banned in Malaysia, for God's sake. You know. So I phoned him up, the Nobel Committee, after I think my 4th snub, and I said, "How can you sleep at night, you slags?" And anyway, when you're a misanthrope, the praise of others is effectively scorn. And yes, that is aimed at Wicked the Musical with their Olivier Award for Most Popular Show. The West End. Fundamentally absurd. The West End. You know, only the West End could take the exquisite understatement in A Coat of Many Colours and produce the bastardised, amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Sorry, I'm corpsing there. How dated that material is, but I'm still sticking it out there. Section 3, as I said, it's a historical document as much as a piece of comedy. Do you know what I mean? We'll look back on this much in the same way we look back on Jim Davidson's Now. You know, it'll be like it's as deeply racist, maybe. Hopefully not. Well, anyway. Section 3.1. An experimental investigation into the sleeping habits of my mother. Now, the key results of this work are based on explorations into my mother's sleeping habits that I conducted last winter while Dad was away on a therapy session. Some of you may have already seen these results when I published them in the Shirley Gazette or at the 3rd International Symposium on my mother, although the only people there were Mum, Dad, my brother and Dan, and briefly the fire brigade, because I'd built a model of my mother times 50 scale, and well, you know, the closing ceremony, the Catherine wheel nipples got out of control. Now my mother is a woman of a certain age. She's 55. Middle-aged humans are a common phenomenon that can be observed at a wide range of locales. From the wine aisle at Waitrose to that at Sainsbury. They can be identified chiefly by the appearance of moderate wrinkles on their faces and bodies, and by their possessing an often timid demeanour. This study is concerned with the development of a new methodology for measuring various character traits by the control and disruption of their sleep. Specifically, we observed the 55-year-old human female Sharon Shirley, herein referred to as SS Old Bean, by means of an observation deck concealed in its bedroom. Recent advances in toilet design, see figure 1, that's another visual gag there, allow the scientist continuous access to the bedrooms of the middle-aged for the first time. We employ such a shed/toilet approach using the older prod with stick methodology for waking my mother. Specifically, the PWS method produced massive eruptions of swearing and violence when repeatedly applied between the hours of 0300 and 0500 hours GMT. Indeed, the author had to resort to the hose to keep his mother at bay on 3 occasions, the first being coincident with the burglary, which was left to take its natural course in order to avoid any possibility of artifactual data, the other 2 showing no coincidence with experimental conditions, but both accompanied by identical protestations relating to work in the morning. Clearly, the middle-aged are a strange animal with complex behaviour and oral communication systems. The Middle Ages are some of the toughest in our lives, and here we've seen how modern methods can give insight into this peculiar being. You know, I'm not saying that the middle-aged should be put in zoos, you know, or that they should be liquidised and fed to our young. You know, but something has to give, you know, because they are consuming all our resources and they contribute absolutely nothing to the cultural landscape. Diary entry 6, June 25th, 2011. Dad has installed a high-pitched siren just outside the range of the middle-aged to try and force me to leave. He has also started leaving poisoned gumdrops around and a trap. I mean, it's a humane, sticky one. But even so, he just drops me in the neighbour's garden and I just keep coming back. June 26th, 2011, started the dirty protest / hunger strike. Mum bought me some dinner. I rubbed it in Dad's special Bible. You know, he's not that religious, but it was his mother's, so 1-0 Raph. After bedtime, she bought me some toffees. I said, well, all right, but don't tell Dad. July totals, approximately 100 wee-wees, exactly 25 poo-poos. July 1st, 2011, Mum has started applying for jobs for me. I went to the job interview. I couldn't stand the way he was like, hello. And I was like, hello. And he was like, why do you want to work for Shell? And I was like, oh, God, you are so mainstream. And he's like, what's been your greatest achievement so far? And I'm like, probably answering this question without vomiting, mate. And he's like, who is your boss? And I was like, I categorically refuse to say the customer. And the post is like dripping through the letterbox. And I was like, give me the letter, Mum. And I got the letter. I got a special letter. I've got a magic letter. I love getting letters. Dear Mr. Shirley, we regret to inform you, yes, I am aware of the absurdity of preemptively regretting something I'm about to do. He didn't say that we are unable to offer you a position at this time / ever. It is in these sentences that HR has scaled the pinnacle of mendacity. Unfortunately, we give preference to applicants who do not do their impressions interview. Furthermore, your recreation of the voice from Disney Blu-ray adverts was not as accurate as you had promised and too esoteric. What? We do not tolerate that sort of crap in this organisation. I apologise for the unfortunate incident of me having to bring you this bad news at this sad time in the current economic climate. Yours sincerely, Peter Voser. Present this rejection letter at one of our many fuel stations and receive 10% off any fuel purchase. Simply quote loser's deal. I'm 30 years old and I'm on the scrap heap. I mean, that's a good deal, but... Right, now we're approaching the point in the show where things can take a lull. Every great show has one. It's like in Terminator 2 when they stop in the desert to stock up on ammo. Yes, Cameron, we get that the Terminator is a father figure. I don't need the narrator to spell it out for me. And that's why we're going to have a little brain break, a little Porter scene, just a chance to have a little fun, because let's face it, so far this has been a slow march to oblivion. We come to section 3.4.1, a jokes, a silliness, a fun, a sitcoms, a farts, the world of humour. A joke 3.1.1, A, 2 oak trees and an Irishman in the mid-morning sun. One of the oak trees says to the other, they're such silly things, they flit around getting nothing done, and then they die before they've had a chance to enjoy themselves. Less a joke, more a terrifying prospect. My dad thought oak trees came out of acorns. I said everyone knows that trees have always been there. I spent a year trying to figure out what acorns did. I collected 1,000 acorns and didn't get any closer to unravelling the mystery, and then I flushed them down the toilet 10 at a time. Diary entry 7, watched Mum unblock the drains. What a slave to societal norms. At midday, Dad cut down my favourite climbing chestnut tree because it was going to fall on the garage. I cried for 4 hours. Joke 3.1.1, B. God, you spend a lot of time alone and you're very creative. What are you implying? No, I jest. I'm obviously a massive homophobe. Joke 3.1.1, C. I was walking down the street the other day and I went to China and I said, whoa, look at all those Chinamen. My friend said, you can't call them that. I said, all right, terracotta warriors. I went to Beijing. I saw an American woman wearing a t-shirt that said, I heart BJ. Joke 3.1.1 D. Now this joke is called When Jokes Collide with Humorous Repercussions. Joke 3.1.1 D. I. Knock knock, who's there? No. Oh my god. Joke 3.1.1 D. 1. Joke 3.1.1 D. I've really messed that up. Anyway, here we go. Joke 3.1.1 D. Part 1. Knock knock. Who's there? No. Who's on first at the moment? When jokes collide. Joke 3.1.1 D. Part 2. Doctor, why did you study medicine then also get a PhD? Seems like overkill when jokes collide. Joke 3.1.1 D. Part 3. What do you call a cross between a piece of bread and a piece of bread? A crucifix sandwich. when jolts collide. Joke 3.1.1, E, A and not A, where A is the proposition that I'm not saying my wife is fat. My wife wants a divorce because, and I quote, I'm ruthless. I said, that's a tautology, Ruth. She says I'm pedantic because I refuse to call it anything other than late Cretaceous Park. And I won't call it anything other than Cybocop. I said, fine, divorce me. As a matter of fact, I was looking forward to a rather hot summer with a certain little old flame. Footnote 8, old flame is what I call the sun. Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. As in, they don't really go together. Rather, humanity has constructed a despicable mechanism with which to enchain and enslave something that was once beautiful. Diary entry 8, July 1st, 2011. The Investigations is ready for publication. The full work is transcribed by Mother and sent to the Philosophical Review. I had to make her rewrite it because she hadn't capitalised the Investigations. We just have to wait to hear back now to see if we've made it. Do you think we'll make it? Oh, I'm so excited. Will we, won't we? There is genuine jeopardy. Come on. I'm trying to create a sense of togetherness here. This is the whole point in the show, guys. It's not just a framework upon which to hang unrelated material. Come on, get involved. This is it. It's all building to a climax. Although, because I'm doing this in sections, you'll have to wait till next week for section 4. Section 4, discussion, debate, freedom of speech, complicated issues. This is the reflective part of the show, the middle-aged part, if you will. There's still a glimmer of hope, but ultimately an overwhelming air of regret. Perhaps we could have afforded Jerry Seinfeld. Perhaps if we hadn't eaten out so much. But there's so much to discuss. The decision is in. Will the Investigations be published? No, I will not accept submissions from you anymore. I've overreached. I'm 30 years old and I haven't produced one single major work of philosophy. There are downsides to being an out-of-work philosopher. For instance, this is a diagram of my brain. Visual gag alert. I show a piece of paper with black and red squiggles on it. I become despondent. I walk to the back of the stage, cry a little, putting drops of water in my eyes from a syringe. Just a little song I call The Plight of the 30-year-old white male, middle class, heterosexual Aldertonian. I feel like the cast of Rainbow. Do you know what I mean? Does anyone know what I could possibly mean by that? Let me read you a little conversation held at the Long Oaks retirement home. Zippy, George, I'm frightened. We used to have the ears of the world, and now we're on the wane. We're so past it that if we were to appear in a comedy show, people would probably say, that's a bit of an outdated reference, isn't it? Like Islam. Or Lady Diana, Princess of Wales. A reference there that would only make sense if you'd seen a visual gag much earlier in the show. What do you mean, Bungle? I mean, Zippy, our minds have aged while our synthetic bodies have gathered dust and frayed. George doesn't know his own name. I've done the poo in my pants. 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 Will somebody wipe my bottom? You're a moron. We sit here while our legacy slowly fades. The best we can hope for, to be given away for nothing with the Daily Mail. or approximately 30,000 hits a month on YouTube from unimaginative 30-somethings who find it amusing in an ironic nostalgia sort of way.
I'm confused. Are we going into the dust bungle?
Yes, Zippy. Yes, we are. You've been listening to Raph Shirley's Philosophical Investigations. Tune in next week for Section 5, Conclusions. Section 5, Conclusions. It's true, we're here. This is the evening, the winter, the quaternary period, the bit in T2 with Sarah Connor's simplistic soliloquy. Because if a machine can learn the value of human life, maybe we can too. And this show has been like a life, hasn't it? It fizzled along irrelevantly and ultimately came to nothing. And what have we learned? A lot. Oh, it's been one hell of a journey. We got off on the wrong foot a little bit, didn't we? But we found companionship, if not a mutual ceasefire. We had our ups, we had our downs, but we got through it. And what has it been about? It's been about one man's triumph against adversity. One man and his burden of genius and his fight for justice. One massive mind and its impact on human thoughts. Now, what do I want you to take away from today? What do I want you to think about the show? The conclusion. It was... What is the conclusion? The conclusion is something to do with... autism, a catch-all excuse for all manner of prickery. The TV section of a newspaper, an admission of inferiority, like a husband permitting his wife's infidelity, buying her the prophylactics, yet our choice of paper is determined largely by their TV section layout and aesthetic preferences. Jesus, shat. Ed Miliband became a socialist because he likes the Guardian Guide. When you're Pope, there's no one left to confess to. If I were a boy, I think I would understand. If I were someone who is currently complaining is unable to... If I were a boy, I think I would understand. If I were someone who I'm currently complaining is unable to empathise, I think I would be able to empathise. What the hell are you on about, Beyonce? But I do like Beyonce because, like Leni Riefenstahl before her, she raises interesting questions about the conflict between technical virtuosity and preposterous moralising. CF, Nazism, the institution of marriage in Christianity. A lot of people don't get the references in that joke. Listen, go Google Leni Riefenstahl, have a joke after the show on me, that's a free one. Environmentalism is based on the assumption you like your children. A career is a job you pretend to enjoy. When Dr. Pepper's advertising firm came up with their slogan, had they considered infinite suffering? I'm beginning to question Vodka Revolution's communist credentials. When there has been negligible interest, can you take any credit for fidelity? Can I use the T2 conclusion? Is that allowed? I don't have the rights. It's your fault. You come in here, you sit in your room listening to this. You've done no work. You just oh yeah, let's see how it goes. Let him do all the work. Who do you think you are? How dare you sit there with your judgmental eyes? Do a little dance, minstrel boy. Oh yeah. It's easy to criticise now, isn't it? Where were you when the script had to be written? Where were you at 2 a.m. to say, Raph, maybe you should leave World of Warcraft for a bit and do some rehearsing? I'll be on my way. I don't know if I'll ever settle down. I think I might just be a soul at sea, a wandering genius. Well, do keep in touch. Many thanks and best regards. Loaded with symbolism and meaning, isn't it? This visual gag of which you're entirely unaware. Yours faithfully, a powerful piece. Your ever-loving but disingenuous friend, Raph Shirley. Goodbye. That's the end. If you've listened to the whole set, if you listened to the whole show, genuinely thank you very much. It took me by surprise how badly it would translate into audio. It's also like I'm kind of... At times I was amused by the lack of any mood due to not having an audience. But in all seriousness, thank you very much. It was supposed to be an advert for my 2012 Edinburgh show, Computer Programmer Extraordinaire. In hindsight, I don't. It's best to separate them. Really, it's an entirely new show, and whatever you thought of that, it was my debut show. I was a I was a younger man. I was I've had many lessons. Anyway, cheers. Probably end now. I feel a bit like I'm on the phone and I'm waiting for the other person to hang up. But of course, there is no other person. I really am alone. Goodbye.